Hi, I am Moriah Rhame, and I have been a practicing medium since 1999. I've appeared on some television shows. I'm the author of How to Be a Happy Medium, which was published in 2003. I've had casino shows, and I teach workshops and classes across the United States in hopes to teach people how to communicate with the person they love the most that is on the other side. So you might be wondering, what is a medium? And because of popular Hollywood movies, cultural beliefs, religious ideals, or what your great uncle Ernie told you what a medium was, you might be a little confused. But basically, mediumship means being open to the idea that after we die, if we love someone, we can still communicate with that person through love, symbols, signs, and messages, and that in death, we are never truly alone because we're never born and we never die, and love is the one constant that will always connect us to that person we love more than anything. I think, one of my favorite quotes of all time came from the Buddha. He said, "Trust everything I tell you and question everything I say. If it doesn't make sense with your own rhyme and reason, then you've got to let it go." So mediumship isn't for everyone. I think if you have questions about this, you really need to talk with your family, talk with a religious counselor, make up your own mind. And one of the best suggestions I have is read every single book you can find on the subject to see if it makes sense with your own beliefs. If you are open to the idea that this can work, it absolutely can. There are some issues that do arise from time to time. I lost my dad in 2012, and people often say to me, "Oh my gosh, you are so lucky you can talk to your dad." And I wish I could, but I have a lot of grief from losing my father. So I have to rely on my friends. I have to rely on other techniques to be able to communicate with him. Sometimes I really think that grief is akin to swimming through jello. It's a very heavy, dense energy. And when you're really suffering, when you love the person you have loved more than anything, they're on the other side and you're here, it can be really difficult to get messages. Time and time again, I have family members say, "Why does my sister get messages? Why does my brother get messages? Why does my spouse get messages, but I don't?" And sometimes people are really hurt by this. It does not mean that your loved one doesn't love you. It doesn't mean that they're not trying to get a hold of you. What usually happens is that when you're suffering and you have a lot of grief and you're really trying to slug through it, those messages are hard to notice. They're really hard to see. And so I'm going to talk about that today. One suggestion I have, if you can't get through your grief, and grief can be very complicated, I strongly suggest that you seek out a grief counselor, that you talk to a religious person that you trust and respect, and that you join a support group like Compassionate Friends. So as much as you can do to work through your grief, you absolutely have to make the effort, because sometimes, as you know, we suffer privately. Sometimes people don't understand that grief as well. When we're in the active grieving process, people often think that they're being helpful by saying, "God needed another angel," or, "God needed so and so more than you do." And I know that people mean well when they say things, and it can be so hurtful to us because we really think that we need our beloved more than anyone does. And unfortunately, everyone that is born is also born to die. It is a part of life. You can't have life without death. You can't have darkness without sunshine. So while we're missing that person that's on the other side, and until we're reunited with them, I'm going to teach you some tips and tricks to get you back on track, to get some messages. Sometimes when we're not open to this idea, we don't understand this idea of mediumship, it can be really difficult. So I like to tell my relatives, "Please hit me in the head with a brick. Do something to me so that I absolutely, positively know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, you're trying to get across to me." Now, sometimes they might come to you as a song. Sometimes they might come to you in dream state. And before my late grandmother crossed over, I asked her to come to me as a single white feather. And one day when I was having issue after issue after issue, and I had a really important meeting to go to. I was a hot mess, to say the least. I looked down at my feet, and there on top of my foot was a single white feather. I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that she was with me. So sometimes when we're grieving, we have to remember to tell our loved ones to make sure that we remember dreams, that we see the sign or symbol that they're trying to give us. And sometimes you may want to ask for something that really stands out. So you can't say, well, everybody sees a robin or everybody sees a blue jay. You could, ask for a reference to, if you're really there with me, have a buzzard land in my yard. Now, certainly, that may not always happen, but you might turn on the television, you might see a show about buzzards, you might look at the newspaper, and there might be the term buzzard in there. So sometimes symbols are hard to gather. When I was doing a reading one time, there was a young girl that had crossed over, and above her head was a giant bear. And so, of course, I was anticipating and expecting the absolute worst. And I finally said, does anybody know why I'm seeing this? And the lady laughed and said, sure, her last name was Bear. So sometimes symbols can be kind of comical. And a lot of times I've found when we have had endured so much grief, our relatives do come forward with kind of a funny sense of humor to say, I'm okay, I'm right here, lighten up a little. So, another way to really learn to communicate with your late loved ones that have crossed over is get together with some of your closest friends. Ask if someone is interested in having a connection circle. And if you have a connection circle, you might want to have an even number of people to practice with. So maybe you might want to start out with a group of 4 people, a group of 6 people, or a group of 8 people. You're going to agree to meet once a month at someone's house, and you can practice different ways to communicate. You might want to start out your meeting with a guided meditation. You might want to look online, get some great books, and look for intuitive exercises and practice those with each other. And we have a program at Uopia, which is a place that I work, where we have a 1 hour coffee talk that lasts every week. My friend Rachel leads that, and they talk about all things spiritual in a very safe environment without anyone being critical, judgmental. Everybody brings their own beliefs but is open to new ideas. So when you want to get in the habit of practicing mediumship, it is a practice. It really has to become a part of your life. It has to be your passion, and you really have to want to practice it daily. When I first started this journey, I have spent probably at least 16 years in bumper to bumper traffic. I've been in more basements than I care ever to believe. I used to do home parties. I've spent a lot of way and a lot of time from home. So that wasn't easy. I'm not suggesting that everybody quits their day job and becomes a medium, but I am suggesting that you do make this a practice and it becomes a part of your life. So we can have connection circles or a coffee talk group where you get together and practice this. The third thing is some of us might be better at auditory messages. Some of us might be better through writing. Some of us have better sense at gut feel. And so you've got to really figure out where your strong suit is. And really, that just comes from practicing different ways of communicating with your late loved ones. But one thing you might want to do, in your mind's eye, you might want to visualize that you have a movie theater screen in your forehead with an old-fashioned countdown like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And you might ask your loved one to show you that they're female, and so you might want to see pink in your mind's eye. If they're a male, you might want to see blue in your mind's eye. And we know how we have the universal symbols for being an infant, a toddler, a child, a teen, adult, and elderly. You maybe want to ask them, can you show me how old you were when you crossed over? So basically, when you want to communicate with your late loved ones, sometimes it's best to try it visually to see what you get. And of course, you're going to say to yourself, I just made this up. This is ridiculous. Let me figure something out here. One thing you might want to do, I don't think many people know about Millard Fillmore, the 13th President of the United States, who I think was in the Whig Party. You might want to say to yourself, you know what, I don't know much about Millard Fillmore. And you might want to focus on Millard Fillmore, and you might want to get colors, images, smells, sounds, try to guess how many children he had, who he was married to, where he came from. And then you can verify those details by looking it up online. So sometimes when we're doing exercises, you often ask yourself, is this coming from me or is this coming from another source? And I have found that if you hear anything negative, like you're stupid, you're ugly, you're fat, that's you. If you hear something positive and compassionate and full of love, that's the other thing. So always, always, always wrap yourself in love. Always expect that your highest good is going to be served. And if you are spiritual or religious, you might want to say a prayer that your highest good is served. And if you're not spiritual or religious, that's okay too. Just be open to the idea that you are loved unconditionally and that your love for your late loved one will always bind you together. And next week, we're going to go through some very specific techniques about how to communicate, how to receive messages, and how to be more open to this process. But for this first week, I think the best thing to do is picture in your mind's eye you have that blank movie theater screen, and you want to pick one of your friends that you know fairly well, and you want to talk to them about maybe their great grandma, a great uncle, a great aunt, or a relative that you know nothing about. And ask them if they're comfortable with this, but you're going to try to communicate to that late loved one for them. And you're going to say, you know, I'm just starting, don't hold me to anything. And you want to, on paper, maybe write down colors, ideas, words, memories, feelings that you get about this person. And you can ask your friend for great uncle Ernie's first and last name. You can ask how old he was approximately at his death and how many family members he had so you don't feel like you're doing this cold. But I guarantee you, if you do it with love in your heart and you do it with the highest good to give a message to your friend, those images will come forward very quickly. You might get sensations or feelings, but don't be afraid to try it. I swear you're not going to roll on your back. You're not going to froth at the mouth unless, of course, you want to. Um, there, there's nothing wrong with having unconditional love in your heart. And the best part for me, why I love my job more than anything in the world, where else can you meet with a stranger and you feel their loved ones come through you to speak to them and you feel that unconditional love, you feel that sense of peace they want to have, and where else can you love a complete stranger unconditionally? It is the most beautiful feeling in the world to share that love. And I hope you'll watch the whole 10-part series on mediumship. If you have questions or comments, feel free to write those below, and I will do my best to answer those. So good luck with the first series, the first part of series 1 in the 10-part series on mediumship. And I wish you well, and I hope you have a fantastic week. And if you have any questions or you want to refer to my blog, www.moriahthemedium.com, Moriah.com. Have a great week.